Welcome to the Big Story. I'm Gretchen Ho.
I'm Pauline Verzosa.
And I'm Shawn Yao.
Tonight's Big Stories. PhilHealth is increasing case rates of about 9,000 benefit packages in the same year that it is getting nothing from the national budget.
The National Security Council dispels talk that infighting within the Philippine security sector had something to do with its reorganization.
And here is to 2025 and guilt-free rice consumption as researchers introduce new varieties of the staple that can actually manage blood sugar levels.
PhilHealth may not be getting any subsidy from the government this year, but it is bent on expanding benefits for members.
Now, taking into account inflation and the rising cost of healthcare, the state health insurer has increased its case rates by half.
The adjusted benefits is already in effect since January 1 and will cover almost all procedural and medical case rates. The big story tonight from Ria Fernandez.
Despite having zero share from the 2025 national budget, PhilHealth is still expanding benefits for members this year. Since January 1, the state health insurer has increased by 50%, about 9,000 case rate packages. This is more than the hike of 30% in February of 2024. This initiative aims to do a few things for members: reduce out-of-pocket expenses and ensure quality health service amid inflation. For example, the case rate for pneumonia that's previously at 13,000 will now be at 19,500 pesos. That's the same coverage for dengue cases from 10,000 pesos, or a hike of 9,500 pesos. The rate expansion, though, are only for select medical benefits and may not cover diseases that require bigger coverage. PhilHealth will soon release a detailed list of excluded packages on their website and other official platforms. That includes the kidney transplant package with a past provision of 600,000 pesos, which will now get between 800,000 and as much as 2 million pesos. On the other hand, angioplasty benefits for heart attack patients will be increased to over 500,000 from the previous 30,000 pesos. The benefits will not be limited to hospital admissions. Even walk-in patients or those rushed to emergency rooms of PhilHealth accredited facilities will be covered.
Hindi kinakailangang ma-confine, but rather after a few hours of stay ay pauuwiin na po. Yan po ngayon ay atin na rin i-cover at babayadan na rin po natin siya.
For News 5, Ria Fernandez, We Are One News.
Let's discuss this further with the spokesperson of PhilHealth, Israel Pargas. Dr. Pargas is also the Senior Vice President for Health Finance of the State Health Insurer. Welcome to the Big Story, Doc.
Hello, good evening, and thank you for the opportunity.
Hey, Doc Pargas, I guess a question on everyone's mind is, after seeing the budget where there's zero subsidy for PhilHealth, where are you getting the money now for the expansion of the benefit packages, and which benefit packages are included in the expanded benefit packages for the coming year?
Well, again, as said by our President, Mandy Ledesma, and even as said by our President, PBBM, we have enough funds to support the current benefits and even the expanded and increased benefits. Technically, another round of 50% increase will cover around 9,000 case rates. If you would remember, last February of 2024, we have increased around 30% of our around 9,000 case rates, and this will be the one that will be increased again for another round of 50% starting January 1 admission.
Ano po ibig sabihin ng case rate, 9,000 case rates?
Yun po yung lahat ng mga pagkakasakit or operasyon or kung medical illness po na nako-confine na ang pagbabayad po natin ay nakapakete or naka-case rate. Sa ngayon po, meron tayong around 9,000 case rates na in-increase po natin. Again, gaya po nung February is 30%, ngayon another round of 50%. However, meron po tayong ilang mga specified cases na hindi kasama dito sa increase na ito because sila po ay ni-rationalize natin. Ibig sabihin, in-increase po natin sila separately, gaya po nung nabanggit na kidney transplantation, yan pong mga pneumonia severe, dengue severe, even the cataract, the dialysis, sila po ay hiwalay na nating in-increase other than the 9,000 case rate na in-increase natin ngayon ng 50%.
Okay, so tama po yung assessment ng government na sapat naman po ang inyong pera. Because there are the advocates who are saying that the zero subsidy might affect the expansion of the coverage of PhilHealth. So tama po ang assessment. Go ahead.
Opo. Gaya po ng nabanggit ng ating Pangulo at again nabanggit na rin nga po ni PBBM, we have enough funds to cover for our current benefits and even the expansion of this benefit for 2025. So we also assure our members and all our public PhilHealth members that we will continue to provide our benefits and even improve on them.
Okay, Dr. Pargas, yung isang kinakatakutan ng marami, no, especially ng mga nagko-contribute, ng mga miyembro ng PhilHealth, tataas yung contributions dahil nga hindi nagbigay ng allocation yung government from their side. Is there any truth na itataas yung mga premiums ng members for contributions?
Accordingly po, actually dun po sa Universal Healthcare Law, ang nakalagay po doon, ang ating premium increase is at the maximum of 5% na na-reach na po natin noong 2024. So wala na po tayong inaasahan na any premium increases for this year or anytime after this year po, wala na po tayong premium increase because na-reach na po natin yung 5%. In fact, doon po sa ating Senate at sa ating House of Representatives, meron pong mga bills to amend the Universal Healthcare Act. At ang kasama po dito sa amendment na to is to lower the premium contribution.
Okay, ang tanong naman no na next dyan yung utilization ng PhilHealth. Ang sabi ng national government at ng mga legislators natin, Dr. Pargas, ay mabagal daw yung paggamit or paggastos ng PhilHealth ng pera. Kaya hindi naman daw nila kailangan pondohan for 2025. Ano po yung plano ng PhilHealth para mapataas yung utilization ng mga idle funds nito? I'm using the word idle, quote-unquote, no? Kasi ang daming tawag, reserve, kaya ano-ano yung tawag. But for the money that, is not being spent fast enough, like payments to hospitals, what is the plan of PhilHealth for that?
Well, we have been aggressively expanding and increasing our benefits since 2023. In fact, noong pong 2023, yun pong ating severe or high-risk pneumonia was already increased from 32,000 to 90,000 pesos, or even yun pong ating coverage for stroke was increased from 28,000 to around 80,000. And in 2023, we also started providing new benefits like our mental health packages. At ngayon nga pong 2024, more aggressive po tayo sa pagpapalabas at meron po tayong 7 new benefits. Hanggang ngayon pong 2025, meron pa rin po tayong ilalabas. At may mga bagong benepisyo po tayo, katulad po halimbawa ng coverage for oral health care, coverage for assistive mobility devices, coverage for prescription glasses, and even ngayon pong starting January of 2025, yun pong dati na hindi natin kino-cover na emergency care package kasi we have primary and we have confinement packages, pero yun pong mga nadadala sa mga emergency room na hindi naman na-admit pero ginamot po ay wala tayong dating coverage. Ngayon po ay binabayadan na rin natin at i-cover na rin po natin yan.
Okay, Doc, balikan ko lang po yung premium na binabayad. Under the UHC law, if there are excess funds, actually PhilHealth can do two things. One is to expand the benefits, which you're already doing right now. But the second is also to decrease the premium contributions. How achievable is that, Doc? Possible rin ba po ba yan in the near future na i-decrease yung premium na binabayad, which is currently at 5%?
Opo. Actually, ang nakalagay po doon is kung meron tayong excess fund, meron pong gagawin. Mag-expand or mag-decrease ng premium contribution. And alam niyo naman po that we are already doing the first one expanding all our benefits. But we are also looking into and studying if we can actually decrease our premium contributions at kung kakayanin pa rin po ng ating pondo. But gaya po ng nabanggit ko, even po sa Senate at sa House of Representatives, meron pong filed bills to amend the UHC to even lower the premium contribution.
Doc Pargas, ibaba lang po natin sa tao yung diskusyon. For example, may isang tao na pupunta sa ospital at na-hospitalize siya for, sabihin na po natin, nilalagnat siya at 100,000 pesos ang kanyang bill. Magkano po ang sasagutin ng PhilHealth dun sa 100,000 ngayon with the expanded coverage?
Well, depende po yan kung ano yung pagkakasakit. Halimbawa po, ang naging pagkakasakit ng ating pasyente is high-risk pneumonia. So ngayon po, ang ating babayadan na kung ang kanyang bill halimbawa is 200,000, ang mako-cover po ng PhilHealth is 90,000 pesos. Kung halimbawa naman po kasama din sa mga probiso ng ating benefit packages ngayon, kung ang pasyente or ang PhilHealth member would opt to be admitted in a basic or ward accommodation in a government facility or private facility, dapat po ay no co-payment or wala na dapat babayadan ang pasyente.
Dagdagan ko lang, Gretch, no, yung tanong mo. Kunwari nga, gano'n, no, so nakapasok yung pasyente, pagdating sa billing, bayaran na po. Minsan kasi may cases na aabunuhan muna ng pasyente tapos sisingilin sa PhilHealth, but not everyone is lucky enough to have that capacity. May improve ba yung service in a sense na may PhilHealth desk naman sa bawat hospital or clinic? Pwede na bang i-minus yun directly sa bill this year?
Hindi po dapat nangyayari yung pong inaabunuhan muna ng pasyente dahil ang atin pong polisiya at na yan po ay nasa batas din na automatic deduction po ang PhilHealth benefit, including all the necessary and mandatory discounts. Dapat po ay automatic ang deduction.
Pag cancer naman po, yung medyo mahal-mahal na mga sakit, for chemotherapy treatments, how much now is the coverage of PhilHealth?
We also cover for chemo and of course our cancer patients. Halimbawa po, katulad ng ating breast cancer, from 100,000 ngayon po is 1.4 million na ang ating coverage for breast cancer. Para po naman halimbawa sa prostate cancer, it's around 100,000. Kung cervical cancer po, it's around 175 or 150,000. But for 2025 po, ayan po ang nakafocus natin to review and expand all our cancer benefits.
Ang hirap po intindihin, no, Dr. Pargas, na kahit na natapis na ng budget, supposedly mas konti na yung pondo ng PhilHealth, ang laki nung tinaas, let's say, just for breast cancer alone, yung coverage ay lumaki from 100,000 to 1.4 million. That's more than 100% or no increase. Tapos sa 9,000 case rates, yung tinaasan nyo ng value or ng benefits. Pero
Yes.
sabi nga nung DOH, no, na meron daw kayong 150 billion peso surplus galing sa 2024 budget ng PhilHealth, which pwede nyo daw gamitin ngayong taon. Pero ang sabi naman no, ni former Finance Undersecretary sa aming sister program na Storycon na nagdududa siya na kaya daw nitong savings from last year makover lahat ng expenses or at least part ng expenses for this year. Meron po kaming soundbite. If you can indulge us, we'll just play it real quickly para mapakinggan nyo po.
Kasi meron tayong konsulta package. Yan po yung annual check-up. So hindi dahil wala tayong nararamdaman ay ibig sabihin hindi na tayo magpapa-check-up. Naglaan ng budget dyan na 1,700 per person. Ngayon, kung ang populasyon ng Pilipinas ay 114 million times 1,700, yan po ay aabot na ng 190 billion pesos. Para sa AKA project pa lang. Para dun sa konsulta package pa lang. 'Di ba? So lagpas na yan sa 150 billion pesos. Ang dami pa nilang pinapangako at sinasabing lalawakan para ang coverage kahit walang subsidy. Paano yan gagawin ng PhilHealth?
Your reaction to that, Doc?
Yes, tama po tayo na yung konsulta natin, ang binabayadan po natin is 1,700 per patient or per member po. At yun po namang example niya is kung lahat po ng ating pasyente ay magpapakonsulta, magagastos po natin yung 190 billion or yung kanyang sinasabi na 190 billion. But hindi naman po lahat ng ating pasyente or ng ating miyembro ay nagpapakonsulta or nagkakasakit. Tama rin po kayo doon sa nabanggit na we have around 150 billion in excess. Yun po yung nabanggit na datos at yan po yung ating gagamitin para po doon sa ating mga expanded benefit programs kasi yun din po ang nakasulat sa batas na kung meron tayong excess, yan po ang gagamitin natin for our benefits expansion.
I guess the question is, why just now? Kung matagal na pong may pera ang PhilHealth, bakit po ay ngayon lang nagawa yan? Nakita niyo po ba na, kumbaga parang
Hindi naman.
Go ahead.
Hindi naman po ngayon lang natin ginawa. Nagkataon lamang po kasi katulad po ng konsulta, it started in 2022, yun pong ating primary care benefit package. And then of course, prior to that is we have the pandemic and so we focus on the benefits on the pandemic. At so ngayon po, starting 2023, we started expanding all our benefits plus of course, yun pong mga request pa rin ng ating mga legislators and ating mga members na mga benefits na kailangan po nating gawin. Of course, we have to have the needed funds in order for us to expand all our benefits. And gaya nga po na nabanggit natin, right now, aggressively, we are already improving and expanding our benefits.
Well, it is good to hear that because these developments are badly needed. Alam naman po natin, pag nagkakasakit, time is not on their side. At ayun nga po, we hope to see more because sabi nga din ng ibang nakakausap po namin dito, universal healthcare ang pinaglalaban ng batas, which means it should be for all.
Doc, dagdag ko lang din po,
Opo.
ang isa pa kasi pong issue na nire-raise dito is the working class shouldering the burden of paying the premium contributions. Samantala, of course, as we all know, under the UHC law, lahat naman po ng Pilipino ay membro na po ng PhilHealth. Pero the working class still pays 5% from their salaries, pero pag kiniklaim po nila ang PhilHealth sa ospital, napakaliit lang po ng porsyento na nasa-subsidize po sa hospital bill. Dagdag rin po natin, Doc, yung zero subsidy from the government this year. And as pointed out nga po by former Finance Yusek Magno, kumbaga, ang dating po niyan is tinatalikuran din daw po ng government yung responsibility nito sa taong bayan. Your thoughts on that po, Doc?
Well, I cannot comment on the wisdom with regard to the zero subsidy as provided by of course, bicameral of the Senate and the House, and of course, with regard to the approval of the GAA. But suffice it to say that so far, we have enough funds to support, again, our current benefits and even the expansion and the improvement on our benefits. Gaya po ng nabanggit din, kinakailangan din natin talaga na magpakitang gilas, especially this 2025, para po sa sunod na usapin ng pagbabudget for 2026 or beyond, ay magkakaroon na po tayo ng subsidiya na manggagaling sa gobyerno.
Final question, Doc Pargas, the COA urged on January 2 the Department of Health and PhilHealth to resolve 1.3 billion pesos worth of hospital claims denied. What will be the resolution? Nag-meet na po ba kayo tungkol dito?
Well, basically po, yung po mga na-deny na claims are of course not following the necessary requirements ng PhilHealth para po mabayadan. At ito po ang nabanggit po ng COA, especially on the government facilities. So sa ngayon po ay hindi pa nagkakapag-meet ang board tungkol dito, but of course gagawan po yan ng paraan, especially ng ating Department of Health, because they are the ones who actually own the government facilities. So tayo naman po ay sumusunod din lamang dun po sa ating mga polisiya kung kaya't may mga claims na nadi-deny din po tayo. At meron din po tayong mga claims na ibinabalik sa mga ospital na kinakailangan naman nila na maibalik uli sa amin complying with the necessary requirements na hinihingi po natin.
All right. Thank you so much for explaining everything to us. It's good news that we will get more out of our health insurer. Thank you for joining us on The Big Story tonight. We have the spokesperson of PhilHealth, Dr. Israel Pargas.
Hearsay is what National Security Council's Jonathan Malaya had to say about those referring to Vice President Sara Duterte's expulsion from the National Security Council as a sign of worsening security problem in the country. Malaya says this is just the work of groups who would like to politicize since elections are nearing. He also insists that any movement in the organization of the NSC will not affect the Philippines' stance on the West Philippine Sea. And in fact, Malaya said it is but a normal and discretionary practice of the country's leaders to implement reorganization within agencies of the government.
Wala pong rift sa ating security sector. Ang ating pong mga uniformadong sundalo at personnel ng ating pamahalaan ay 100% behind the constituted authority and the chain of command. Kung meron man po kayo nakikita sa social media na mga tao na may mga hinaing o may mga komento, ito po siguro ay mga retiradong miyembro ng armed forces. Wala pong mga incumbent or current officials of the armed forces na hindi sumusuporta sa chain of command. Nasisiguro ko po yan.
We still have more stories coming up. After the break, we'll be speaking with National Task Force for the West Philippine Sea spokesperson, Commodore J. Tariela, on the presence, again, of China's monster ship in Philippine waters. Keep it here on One News.
Welcome back. You're still watching the big story here on One News.
China's monster ship is still not leaving the West Philippine Sea after it was spotted in Zambales this weekend. Canadian dark vessel detection system spotted China Coast Guard vessel 5901 just a few kilometers from Capones Island last Saturday. The Philippine Coast Guard immediately deployed BRP Cabra, a helicopter, and a reconnaissance plane to verify. And upon confirmation, the PCG issued a radio challenge.
CG5901, this is BRP Cabra, MRRB 4409. We are reminding you that you are within 72.6 nautical miles west by the south of Silangin, Zambales, inside in the Philippine Exclusive Economic Zone. Please leave this area immediately. Over.
But the Chinese vessel did not pull back. Instead, it held its ground and even said they are within China's jurisdiction.
This is China Coast Guard, Vessel 5901. I'm performing law enforcement duties on the jurisdictional waters of the People's Republic of China.
Well, the National Security Council thinks it's again one of China's attempts to scare off Filipinos seeking to make a living inside our own territory.
Mukhang parte ito ng intimidation, parte ito ng coercion, aggression, deception na ginagawa ng China. Pinapakita nila na may ganito silang barko at tinatakot yung ating mga mangingisda na mangisda sa West Philippine Sea.
Let's get updates from Philippine Coast Guard spokesperson for the West Philippine Sea. Joining us on the big story tonight, we have Commodore J. Tariela. Magandang gabi, Commodore.
Magandang gabi, Gretchen, at sa inyong mga taga-subaybay.
Happy New Year po, Commodore. Una-una,
Happy
no?
New Year.
There were a series of exchanges between CCG 5901 and BRP Cabra. And it seems that the content of those exchanges are quite different from the previous ones. Tama po ba ako sa aking assessment? At pangalawa, how long have we monitored the stay of CCG 5901 off the coast of Zambales?
Well, regarding your first question, Gretchen, I think there's not much of a difference in mga responses ng China sa radio challenge natin. Since noong una pa, they have been saying that they have the full sovereignty over these waters in the West Philippine Sea. And on our part, the only thing that we added is the Philippine Maritime Zones Act, highlighting that they do not have jurisdiction over this water.
Okay. Commodore, hi. This is Shawn. I would just like to ask, no, when it was observed around the waters of Zambales, actually very alarming kasi napakalapit niya no, sa land, 60 to 70 nautical miles, but very near Capones Island, which you can actually see very clearly from the shores if turista ka lang at nagtatampisaw dyan sa beach. Ano po yung ginagawa? Do you have any guesses what the ship was doing there apart from intimidation? Were tourists and fishermen and locals around the area also affected? Kasi madalas naman silang nakakakita dyan no, ng mga Chinese ships but not always the biggest Coast Guard ship.
Well, Sinead, just for right context, no, a distance of 60 nautical miles is very difficult to see from ashore. Parang hindi mo siya talaga makikita. Super layo niya. And then, pagdating naman sa ginagawa nila, I agree with what Jonathan Malaya said. They're just there to scare our Filipino fishermen in the West Philippine Sea. Parang hindi na sila mangisda. It is worth noting that for the past 2 years, no, since President Bongbong Marcos stood firm on his take about the West Philippine Sea, mas tumaas na ang bilang ng mga mangingisda na mapalaot dito.
Tumaas rin ba yung bilang ng mga apektadong fishermen? Bilang tumaas nga yung number of fishermen who have the courage now to go out to sea. Have you been getting complaints? Kasi normally they would, I assume, run first to the Coast Guard since your presence is the one most available in those areas.
Again, as what I said, no, mas tumaas ang bilang ng mangingisdang Pilipino since we started patrolling the West Philippine Sea. Mas tumaas ang confidence ng mga isda rito. And that is the objective of the Chinese government, why they are deploying their China Coast Guard monster ship, no? Para ma-discourage ulit ang mga mangingisdang Pilipino na pumunta dito sa baho din na silok.
Well, Commodore, based on reports, the Chinese monster ship did not really harass any Filipino fishermen at sea nor conduct any blocking or dangerous maneuvers. Pero are we prepared po in case the ship turns into a more defensive stance? What is the next course of action for the Philippine Coast Guard kung mangyari po yun?
Well, first of all, the Philippine government is prepared, no, pagdating sa ganito. Because with regard to our strategy, we intend to de-escalate the tension na hindi ito mas tataas ang tension. No? This is the reason why we are deploying only Coast Guard vessels in the West Philippine Sea, and we are not triggered to respond to whatever harassment that they're doing. No?
There's also follow-up reports no, that our response, Commodore Tariela, was to send air and sea assets from both the AFP or the Air Force as well as the PCG to monitor the area. Has that been peaceful so far? How did the conduct of that go?
Well, I cannot speak for the armed forces of the Philippines, but as far as the Coast Guard is concerned, we have been deploying our vessels and aircraft to make sure that we are vigilantly monitoring the presence of the Chinese Coast Guard.
Commodore Tariela, tinitignan ko po itong mapa, no? Yung 65 to 70 nautical miles, I remember that is where usually the fishermen head to. Ganun kalayo sila nangingisda, doon sila nag-drop ng kanilang mga payaw. Tama po ba na marami tayong mangingisda kung nasaan yung pinuntahan ng monster ship?
But I don't think there's the same location, no, where they drop their payaw and the place where we also ask the Filipino fishermen to go, no. Different locations naman yan. And it's not most likely doon sa area pintuhan ng China Coast Guard monster ship.
And sabi nga kanina sa PTV4 no, ni DG Malaya ng National Security Council, we have all our assets pointed at this monster ship. The moment it carries out any provocative action, it will be met with appropriate response. Kasama po ba kayo? I understand you can't speak for the AFP, but in terms of the PCG, kasama po ba kayo dun sa mga assets that are facing or pointed towards this direction?
But again, as what the Commandant has directed, we are utilizing all the Coast Guard assets to make sure that the monster ships will not harass or carry out any actions that are jeopardizing the safety of our Filipino fishermen. We are committed in deploying all our Coast Guard vessels and aircraft. No? So pagkakataon na the China Coast Guard will carry out any activities that would endanger the Filipino fishermen.
This isn't the first time that the monster ship actually entered into our EEZ. Maalala po natin, nasa Escoda Shoal po siya before our BRP Teresa Magbanua left. What do you think is the message of China here? Why are they in those waters sa may Zambales?
Honestly, this is not the first time that the Chinese Coast Guard deployed its monster ship. I think this is already the third time. The first one was in Mindoro, then in Palawan, now in Zambales. You're going to ask me what's the main objective of the Chinese government, why they are deploying their Coast Guard monster ship now in Zambales. You can only think of two reasons. No? First, they want to legitimize and normalize the deployment of Coast Guard vessels, their China Coast Guard vessels in Bajo de Masinloc and its vicinity. Second, they want to break the confidence of the Filipino fishermen. As what I said kanina, mas tumaas ang bilang ng mga mais ng Pilipino na nangingisda since the Coast Guard and the Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources was directed by the President to ensure the safety of our Filipino fishermen.
Commodore, follow-up ko lang din po. Do we have more details now on the underwater drone that was discovered off the coast of Masbate? What do we know about its capabilities and ownership? Because if we remember correctly, there were Chinese markings on that drone. Or underwater.
The Armed Forces of the Philippines has in custody of the underwater drone that was recovered in Masbate. I think they have the competence and capability to know the data that is gathered from that underwater drone in Masbate.
All right.
Well, I guess we are all on alert in response to this monster ship. In the meantime, maraming salamat po for laying down the context for us on that piece of news. Joining us on the Big Story tonight, we have Commodore J. Tariela of the Philippine Coast Guard.
Taking another quick break, but up next, the Philippine Rice Research Institute introduces new rice varieties designed to help manage blood sugar levels. We'll discuss this breakthrough with food scientist Dr. Marisa Romero when the Big Story returns. Keep it here.
Welcome back. This is still the Big Story here on One News. Here's some good news for a change for all the rice lovers out there, like the three of us. The Philippine Rice Research Institute, or PhilRice, has introduced new rice varieties designed to help manage blood sugar levels. Collaborating with the International Rice Research Institute, food scientist Dr. Marisa Romero identified the variety known as NSI CRC182 as having low glycemic index. The glycemic index, or GI, measures how quickly food raises blood sugar. Using advanced in vitro testing that simulates digestion without the need for human subjects, Romero's team also discovered that 3 other varieties share similar GI levels. And these varieties are already popular among farmers for their resilience and high yield. According to Romero, they offer diabetic patients a healthier alternative without sacrificing flavor.
Let's delve into the new varieties of rice even further. We have with us, live via Zoom, food scientist Dr. Marisa Romero. Good evening. Thank you for joining us on the Big Story.
Good evening, Ma'am Gretchen, Ma'am Shawn, and Ma'am Pauline.
Okay, para sa mga rice lover pero weight conscious, ang una-una ko pong tanong ay itong NSICRC182, ay hindi na ba nakakataba?
Wala naman yatang miracle na, no, Doc?
Yeah, essentially po, when we say kasing low glycemic index, low GI, ibig sabihin, as you explained earlier, no, hindi siya ganun kabilis mag-convert sa sugar yung carbohydrate. So, mas hindi siya makakataba. Pero of course, dapat ang consumption natin is in moderation kasi kung marami pa rin, tataba pa rin po tayo.
Okay, how is this variety different? You already spoke about the lower glycemic index, but tell us more about this variety of rice.
Simpler term, no? Kasi what we usually eat is yung ating regular na white rice or polished rice. At ito ay medyo mataas ang kanyang glycemic index. So, kaya kapag kumain tayo ng maraming white rice, ay mabilis na mag-convert into sugar, kaya tataas tayo yung blood sugar natin. Meron tayong chance na magkaroon or makadevelop ng diabetes. Kaya nagkaroon tayo ng ganitong research kasi we noticed that in the Philippines, no, yung diabetes is really increasing. No? Dati, number 8 leading cause of death lang ito. Ngayon, naging number 4 na. So, marami na talagang affected ng diabetes. So, itong ating low GI rice, ibig sabihin, hindi siya tulad ng ordinary rice na relatively high yung GI. So, ito, mas mabagal yung digestion niya. So, mas mabagal din siya mag-convert sa sugar at hindi tayo magkakaroon ng blood sugar spike.
Okay, marami nagtatanong, I'm sure right now, kung nanonood sila, iniisip nila, Doc, mas mura ba itong rice na ito? Mas mahal than the average na, yung kakumpara niya, o yung kalasa niya, same quality niya na rice out there in the market. Kasi marami naman din na nabibili, di ba? May mga rice cooker na naglo-lower nung sugar, may mga rice additives that promise the same thing, bababaan daw yung, may nakuha akong ganun last Christmas. Na parang halo mo sa rice mo, bababa daw yung ano. So I know that there are these products, there's also those rice cookers that promise to lower the GI. How is it different and which one would you recommend for diabetics or those looking after their blood sugar?
Dagdag ko lang din, Doc, usually kasi yung mga healthier options, usually sila pa yung mas mahal eh. So what's the cost of making these low glycemic rice?
Mga po ating low GI rice, no? Na-discover lang recently, particularly nung ating collaborator na International Rice Research. Saka sila ang nag-discover na yung NCRC 182 pala, which is already a released variety in the Philippines. Ay maganda po kasi yung kanilang method. And then we use that as a reference para mag-screen pa ng ibang rice varieties. Kaya kami naman po sa PhilRice, in collaboration with IRI, naka-identify pa ng mga ibang rice varieties. So itong mga to, hindi po sila as popular doon sa mga tinatanim ng mga farmers natin. But upon the discovery na ito pala ay healthier dahil lower ang GI niya, ang DA po mismo, ang Department of Agriculture, bigla kaming kinonvene last year at meron po tayong special project na magko-commence this year na paparamihin natin yung seeds para po mas maging available ito. Maraming farmers ang makatanim at mas maraming consumers ang marating. So sa ngayon po kasi, hindi pa po siya ganun ka-widely available. Pero we think na, of course, since similar naman po yung kanyang crop production and crop management, so the price ay relative the same lang po do kung ano yung market value ng rice. Siguro hindi natin pwedeng sabihin na mas mura. So similar lang po.
Meron kasi akong binasa kanina nung ini-intro kita dun sa report na these varieties are already popular among farmers for their resilience and high yield. So, makakababa rin yun ng presyo kung resilient yung rice, hindi masyadong prone sa mga peste at sa mga kalamidad, and high yield pa. So, makaka-economies of scale tayo dyan. Can you talk to us about that part na talaga bang mas matibay itong mga binhi na ito?
So itong yung ibang varieties na na-mention natin, actually marami po yun hindi lang yung NCRC 182, merong 472, 514, 532, 568 na siguro yung ating mga, of course, yung ating mga consumers, hindi sila familiar sa ganitong pangalan. Mention ko lang din po, ibig sabihin ng NC National Seed Industry Council. Sila po ang nag-approve ng mga varieties dito sa Philippines. So, ito po, iba-iba po sila ng characteristics. Yung iba ay high yielding, yung iba ay relatively lower yielding. So, mga 2.8 to about mga 10 tons ang pwede po nilang i-produce, no? Yung iba po ay, at most of them, dahil nakapasa po sila as a variety na sa Philippines, talagang pumasa po siya sa pagsusuri tungkol sa peste at saka talaga na-reach din naman po niya yung yield. So, kapag po ito mas naging widely available, mas piliin po natin yung lower ang GI pero mas mataas yung yield. Para sa in terms of economics, syempre, mas magiging mura po kapag high yielding po yung mapili natin variety.
Pero Doc, are there also opportunities to apply the same research sa ibang pagkain din po? Kasi parang kung yung kanin nyo naman nga is low GI pero yung ulam nyo, yung viand nyo, matataba pa rin or high in sodium, is there a way to also make our viands or mga ulam healthier?
Opo. Of course, healthier in a different way kasi ang atin namang mga viands ay usually ay protein at saka yan may kung mga gulay naman ay may fiber. So hindi naman sila yung sa glycemic index kasi ang glycemic index ay yung mataas ang carbohydrates at saka yung mataas yung sugar. So and meron din po tayong mga ginagawang pag-aaral. Siyempre, Rice Research Institute po kami. Meron din kaming mga research sa pigmented rice, for example, na na-discover po natin na meron naman siyang anti-cancer potential. So yan, marami rin po tayong ginagawa na meron din po yung vitamin A na mapagkukunan natin yung beta-carotene enriched rice. So marami pa pong iba't ibang research na para maging healthier yung rice at yung ibang food din. So may mga ibang institute or agencies na nag-a-address din po sa health benefits naman ng iba't ibang crops.
Okay, ma'am, how is this made possible? Is this all natural or is this made in the lab? The varieties that we're talking about.
So, ang breeding po kasi can be in two ways. Pwedeng yung ating conventional breeding, no? Parang tao, may nanay, may tatay, pinag-breed natin sila para magkaroon ng anak. So, most of these varieties are conventionally bred. Yun naman pong isa na golden rice, for example, it's genetically modified rice. Ito naman po yung may beta-carotene enriched. So, we as researchers explore different methods para po ma-reach po natin yung ating research objectives, especially po sa healthier aspect.
Pero itong low GI, hindi po yan genetically modified.
Kumbaga, na-discover nyo lang, di ba, na parang, uy, low GI pala tong strain ng rice na to. Ganun po
Yes
yung
po,
nangyari.
Opo, ganun po kasi, of course, hindi pa naman po malaking concern noon ang diabetes at hindi pa po natin pinagtutuunan ng research ang glycemic index. Pero dahil nga sa biglang ang taas na talaga ng incidence ng diabetes, tapos tinignan po natin, ano kaya yung rice? Ano kaya yung mga factors na nakaka-contribute? Bakit tumataas yung incidence ng diabetes? So, check naman natin yung rice kasi staple food natin yan, di po ba? So, we eat it every day. So, nung in-screen na po yung mga different varieties na na-release sa Philippines, so na-discover, meron pala pong available na low GI. So, wala pa po tayong ginagawa na breeding for low GI. Na-discover lang natin na talagang siya ay mababa pala yung glycemic index compared dun sa other varieties.
Kamusta
So,
naman po
ultra
ang
last
lasa?
question.
Kamusta po yung lasa nito? Kasi
Iba po,
napakahalaga nun
Nabebenta na to di ba? Yun yung sinasabi ni Dr. Romero. It's already commercially available. Hindi lang natin alam, di ba, na low GI siya. So, it tastes normal, kumbaga.
Masarap po ba?
Iba rin po ba yung texture?
Ang kagandahan po kasi sa rice natin, di ba, it's relatively bland. Hindi po talaga natin pwedeng sabihin na masarap. Kaya nga, it's a very good staple food because you can combine it with other viands. Kasi kung matamis na yung staple food mo, tapos yung ulam mo pa ganito. So talaga pong, generally sasabihin natin na relatively bland naman yung rice. So halos pareho lang naman po ang lasa. Ang major concern lang po ngayon, yun na-identify po natin ng mga low GI rice, medyo mas matigas po ng konti. At ang problema po sa mga Pilipino ay mahilig po talaga sa malambot.
Malambot.
Dadagdagan na lang ng tubig. Okay lang yan. Pero last question, Dr. Marisa, alam naman natin yung presyo ng bigas, it's really one of the top concerns of everybody. Yan po yung metro natin sa ating ekonomiya, sa happiness natin. Right? Kayo po, naintindihan ko you're on the research part, but now that you've discovered this research, and you mentioned kanina briefly na na-convene na nga kayo for a meeting and that the DA is already pushing for this rice. In terms of directives sa inyo, sa PhilRice, ano po yung rollout plan kung baga sa pagpapalaganap ng mga seeds and pag-spread sa mga farmers?
Okay po. So marami pong agencies yung involved, no? Kasama rin po yung International Research Institute, kasama rin po yung ATI, at UPLB, kasama rin po yan. So marami po iba-iba yung pong roles natin. So sa amin po, for example, is yung seed production tayo. Paramihin yung binhi o paramihin yung seeds nitong mga na-identify na varieties natin na low GI para mas magiging available siya sa ating mga seed growers at yun po ang pwedeng bilhin ng farmers na yun naman po yung itatanim nila. So kapag mas marami na po ito, mas magiging available, accessible, and of course affordable na po itong mga rice na to. At meron din po tayo mga aspect ng i-monitor po natin kung na-purify ba yung seeds, puro po ba siya. Tapos titingnan din po natin yung quality, kailangan natin i-evaluate at kami rin po yung grupo na nagde-determine po noong kahit hanggang yung sa sinatawag na sensory or eating quality. So tinitikman po natin kung after ba na mass produce siya, mas pareho lang din po ba yung lasa. At ang ginagawa po natin, meron pa rin pong research na gagawin na mas ma-improve. Kailangan po ma-balance natin yung yield, yung pest and disease na resistance nila, at yun syempre po yung low GI. At sana mas acceptable po yung eating quality na kasama po yung taste at saka yung
Congratulations po, napakalaking achievement po nito. Lalo
Ako
na
naman
sa mga
nag-volunteer ako
mahihilig.
para mag-taste test tayong tatlo.
pero, may isang request lang po bago po matapos yung interview. Palitan naman po natin yung pangalan. Hindi ko na maalala kung ano yung pangalan.
Low GI.
Oh, diba? Something that we can throw around. Well, thank you so much. This is good news for rice lovers out there. They can have it without having to worry so much about getting diabetes. Thank you so much for joining us on The Big Story tonight, Dr. Marisa Romero from PhilRice.
For the
Alright.
only rice lovers.
I know.
Diba? Yung
Baka
mga
hindi na
ganyang
kailangan
only rice.
mag-half rice ulit. No?
New Year na. Bagong na tayo. Buhay.
Okay, sana umabot siya sa next year's New Year's
Yeah.
resolution. For now, no, hantayin natin na kumalat yung mga seeds at ma-uptake yung technology. But unfortunately, wala na tayong oras on this first official working day of 2025. That's what everyone is saying. That's it for The Big Story tonight.
Magandang ano yun, no? Magandang panimula, no? New rice solutions.
Okay.
We are One News, all
Wait, ika
sides all
doon.
the time.
Thank you very much for joining us and have a good night.